This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
This has got to be one of the better NFL slates I can remember in quite some time, because we have got a bunch of high-end teams all facing each other for this week. So our job for today is to preview some of those high-flying games, try to identify where we can find some betting value into those games, including the Lions, Vikings. We'll talk some Ravens, Bucks as well, Texans, Packers coming in hot. And we're going to talk to Meghan Payton as well and get her read on who the best team in football is right now, because frankly, I've got no idea. So I got to ask her and see what she is thinking. Welcome on into Covering the Spread. That's right here on the FanDuel Research. My name is JimSannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research, joined here as mentioned by Meghan Payton. You can find her on X at Meghan Payton 7. You can find her on FanDuel TV from noon to 2 Eastern every weekday. We're going to break down week 7 with her right now. Meghan, we're on to week number 7. How you doing today?
I'm good, Jim. And you're absolutely right. It's week 7. This has to be the best slate we've seen, at least thus far in this season. We've got some great teams going head to head. This is one of those, like, thank goodness Red Zone exists, because you can just watch all of the games at one time and hopefully find some value, hopefully make some money.
That's the goal. And I think that weirdly, like, I know a lot of times, like, when we're looking for value as bettors, we're not going to find value in the best games. I actually do think there's some pretty good betting value in these top tier games. We talked about that a bit on Tuesday's show, but like, I actually am pretty optimistic that we can find some fun stuff here, which is weird, surprising, but I'll accept it for sure.
I'm with you completely.
All right. So we're going to talk to Meghan today. Again, start things off by talking about like who she's got at the top, because I don't know. So I'm just going to pick her brain, frankly, on that and kind of shovel those responsibilities elsewhere. Then we'll talk Texans, Packers, Lions, Vikings, Ravens, Buccaneers, and get Meghan's best bets for week number. So we'll get some more in-depth thoughts on Niners and Chiefs tomorrow on our player prop show as well. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Our college football week 8 preview with Austin Swain is now up on both Covering the Spread and this now new FanDuel football betting YouTube page. Check out his thoughts there on Georgia versus Texas and other key matchups across the nation for this week. Mentioned tomorrow, we'll be live at 10 a.m. Eastern on the FanDuel football betting YouTube page, talking top player props in the NFL with Aiden Cotter of FanDuel Research and picking his brain on what he sees over there. To get all those shows as they're posted, search for Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts, but also subscribe to this new YouTube page to get notifications as we go live each and every weekday. Leave a thumbs up there and also turn on the bell for notifications over on the YouTube side of things. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as now withdrawable bonus bets, which expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or visit FanDuel.com/RG in Arizona, Colorado, DC, Iowa, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Tennessee, Vermont, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/Chattanooga, Connecticut. Visit MD Gambling Health Org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Now, Meghan, let's begin things here by talking about those elite teams, because a lot of them are facing each other for this week. So no team really separating thus far. The Chiefs still the favorites at 5-1, but it's kind of hard to make them be the definitive top team when there's no Rashee Rice here. So based on what you've seen so far, who is the best team in the NFL right now in your eyes?
The best team has to be the Ravens. It just has to be. Right now, they are playing better than everyone, at least better, I think, than everyone in the AFC. Of course, you look at the NFC, and the Vikings still sitting undefeated. And obviously the Chiefs are always going to be in contention. But for the Ravens, they're out rushing everyone. They've got the best run defense. I guess the only question mark for the Ravens is, are they going to fall apart in the postseason? But right now, Lamar Jackson's playing at an elite level. Getting Derrick Henry in that running back room has really opened up really the identity of what the Ravens are and what Todd Monken wants to do, which is run the ball. And so my only hope is that they stick to that identity like they should have in the postseason. And then the Ravens can still be the best team in the NFL. Baltimore, though, has looked good on all fronts. Even with the change at defensive coordinator, I think they're finally getting a little bit of a rhythm going with Zach Orr. Big loss in the offseason to Mike McDonald, but then you go and get a former player who knows this team well. It is clicking. I'm going with the Ravens right now. When you beat the Bills that bad and you beat early NFC teams at such a crazy – Lamar Jackson is 22-1 against NFC teams in his career. That is wild.
And hopefully we can see Lamar in a Super Bowl one day to add one more column, add one more tally to that column as well. Now, when you're talking about the postseason with the Ravens – they've always had the issue of like consistency on offense. That's bit them in the postseason. Do you think that Derrick Henry kind of changes that equation and gives them multiple ways to win in a way they have not had previously?
That's what I'm hoping, because what's the biggest problem for the Ravens is they blow these big leads and they kind of abandon the run to some degree. And I do think that that's why they went and got Derrick Henry, is because he does elevate the roster. He gives you multiple ways to win. And then you don't rely on Lamar Jackson to have 100+ rushing yards in order to win the game. Obviously, they are going to run offense with 2 tight ends. That's just their style. You're going to get Isaiah Likely involved. And honestly, just to give a quick shout out to Mark Andrews, I know that a lot of people, at least who have him on fantasy, aren't happy. But Mark Andrews is doing a really good job at kind of being the guy that doesn't have to be flashy, doesn't have to be getting all the targets and the receptions, which is opening up this offense. And people are still going to have to cover Andrews. But in the meantime, you're seeing some of these other guys shine.
Yeah. Even Rashad Bateman has looked pretty good at times this year too. So a lot of players who can beat you on that team, which is not something they've always had. It's always been kind of, okay, Lamar, go do stuff. And I think that's less true right now. So Ravens plus 750 is where Meghan is turning for her favorite team in the NFL as of right now. More thoughts on the Ravens coming up. But first, let's take a look here and break down our first game of the week. That is the Texans at the Packers right now, FanDuel Sportsbook. Packers favored by 2.5. Total in this game is 47.5, and the Texans looked awesome in their first game with no Nico Collins, but now facing a tougher offense on the opposing side. So can they duplicate that performance here and pull the upset off in Lambeau?
They can. Jim, you know how much I love the Texans and I love the Packers. This is my favorite game of the week. This might be my favorite game of the season. I love these two teams, two really promising quarterbacks. Obviously, CJ Stroud coming off an insane rookie year, and Jordan Love has that momentum now. This 4th game, I believe, since that knee injury. You're feeling like Packers are getting their stride offensively with plenty of weapons to use at the receiver end. I do lean Texans here because Texans are still the better team to me. I don't think the Nico Collins loss is as big as people are making it out to be. And it's not because Nico Collins isn't effective. It's just because of the other pieces they have. I mean, Joe Mixon coming back, it's kind of a trade-off for Nico as far as offensive weapons. But Tank Dell really stood out last week, which, we're a Tank Dell fan club over here. I know you are too, Jim. Yeah. And you've got Stephon Diggs. The best bet, I think, in this game is to take the over. 47.5. Of course, it feels like what could go wrong? It's a shoot. I think it's a shootout. I think it's a classic shootout. I think that there's still some vulnerabilities on defense for both of these teams. And I'm going to just automatically say it is going to be one of those come down to the last drive. And that's what's determining this game.
And if you take the over, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to root against either Jordan Love or CJ Stroud. You can just sit back and enjoy it. And you were talking about those two guys and these two teams. As you know, I agree on the sentiment around those two teams. And I think that if I'm ranking out the most fun quarterbacks to watch, they're both top 5, right? Like Josh Allen, sure. Patrick Mahomes, of course, he's going to be up there. Lamar is up there. But CJ Stroud and Jordan Love are probably right behind those guys, right?
They have to be. They're at least in terms of most fun. And I think and they have really fun offenses as well. It's kind of, they're moving at a quick pace. I was worried about Jordan Love after that injury. And now I will say you watch Jordan Love play, and the stats are a little bit misleading because he's made some riskier passes that make you go, whoa, don't do that. Like that could have gone bad. Those could have gone bad, which gives me a little bit of hesitation when they're going to be facing such a good team like the Texans. But two high-powered offenses, two teams that are very easily capable of putting up 30 plus points on their own. I mean, the Texans put up over 40 points last week. Yeah. So I definitely see a world in which this becomes one of the more fun offensive shootouts. Just let both QBs cook, 300 plus passing yards for both.
Just a lot of fun players in this game. Our guy Tank Dell, of course, Stroud, Love, all the receivers in the Packers. It's a really fun game. So hoping it does live up to the hype too. So Meghan is on the over for this game. That is 47.5. That is currently sitting at -105. NFC North matchup coming up between the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings. Right now, FanDuel Sportsbook, Vikings favored by 2.5. Total in this game is 49.5. And the Lions blew through the Cowboys in week 6, but now facing the Vikings, who are undefeated and coming off of a bye. So Meghan, straight up, who you got in this lead for the NFC North?
I got the Vikings. And I have to preface this with, I may or may not have a little bit of bias because I'm sweating out this ticket of Vikings to be last remaining undefeated team. Now, I didn't get it preseason. I wish I did, but I got it at, I believe it was like plus 570. So I definitely have a little bit of, rooting for Minnesota. I do like the Vikings in this spot, though. Obviously, a big game and a big win against the Cowboys. But unfortunately for Detroit, the storyline for that game was losing the glue to their defense, the best defensive player in Aiden Hutchinson. Gruesome injury. Obviously, he's immediately on IR. Wouldn't expect to see him back this season, yet somehow Dan Campbell's not ruling that out for some reason. I don't know how he's coming back this year, but that changes the locker room, and that has been the biggest weak point for Detroit is the defense just as a whole. They have a couple other guys, obviously, but the thing about the Vikings that is so intriguing and has been so impressive. It's not just Sam Darnold. It's the way that the Vikings are playing in all three phases of football. What Brian Flores has done on defense for this team, there's not even these crazy big stars on defense. They are just playing a really good team football. The offense has a great run game going. You've got obviously Sam Darnold playing at an elite level, being very efficient. Coaching's great with Kevin O'Connell. I like every little facet of this Vikings team, and I think they'll be able to exploit a division rival, especially in the passing game, because still, you look at Detroit, I mean, they give up 395 passing yards to Geno Smith. They definitely have vulnerabilities on defense. I think that'll get exploited. This is finally a time where the Vikings feel like they've got a shot against the team that's been, for the last couple of years, the team to beat in the NFC North.
So we're liking the Vikings -2.5 in this one. They are at -105 there. You mentioned your ticket on the Vikings to be the last team undefeated. I've got I bet the Niners on Sunday taking on the Chiefs. We'll talk about that game tomorrow.
But are you sweating out a Chiefs undefeated?
No, I've got the Niners to win that one. So I am indirectly rooting for your ticket because I'm rooting for the Niners to beat the Chiefs on Sunday. So you're rooting for the Vikings here. I'm rooting for the Niners in that game. Hopefully that kind of balances things out to get the Meghan ticket across the finish line here. I did want to talk to you a bit more about the Vikings offense, because that's been the part that I've been the most slow to accept.
All right.
And I'm not sure if it's because I grew up a Jets fan and had a point in my life where I kind of had to root for Sam Darnold and the scar tissue is still there. I think that it looks better. And I think that what Kevin O'Connell is doing is putting guardrails up to keep Sam Darnold on the tracks, make sure he doesn't get the zoomies and kind of go insane in the pocket. What have you seen so far that tells you that what they're doing specifically on offense is something we're going to see for the remainder of this season?
Here's the biggest improvement I've seen from Sam Darnold. He's getting the ball out quicker. Yeah. He's not taking those sacks as often. And that's when those negative plays can create, if you pull up negative plays each game and win-loss record, that was one of Sam Darnold's weakest points. I mean, as a Jets fan, and that loses games, turnovers and sacks, the two things you don't want your quarterback to do. And somehow Kevin O'Connell, and maybe it's because their line's been a little bit better, because they've got a solid run game going on, it just all flows a bit more, but that's allowed him to get it out quicker. It's allowed him to be more efficient and simply distribute the ball more effectively. Yeah. And I do think that Aaron Jones has been a big part, obviously, to that run game. And when you've got the best receiver in the NFL, I mean, that's the elephant in the room. He's got the best receiver in Justin Jefferson. That definitely helps.
Yes. Good luck shutting down Justin Jefferson with no Aiden Hutchinson. It's going to be a tough one for the Lions for sure. Do you think that they'll put up a good fight here? But Meghan is on the Vikings -2.5 at -105 for that one. Final game we're going to discuss here for today is the Ravens at the Buccaneers. Again, who would have thought the Buccaneers would be in the premier games for a loaded slate this week? But the Ravens favored by 3.5 in this one down in Tampa. The total in this game is 49.5. And the Bucs, Meghan, keep on just stacking really impressive games. But it's a tough test here. You just said that the Ravens are your top team in the NFL. So can the Bucs at least do enough to cover here at home against the Ravens?
I keep going back to this stat, Jim. I can't help it. Let's first start with Lamar Jackson against NFC teams. Yeah. I will say this right now. I really, really will not take an NFC team against Lamar Jackson in any capacity. I just want 22-1 straight up for Lamar Jackson against NFC teams. And then the Ravens as a whole since 2019, when he became the starter, are covering at a 61% rate against the NFC, which is tied for the most in the NFL. I do think the Bucs are going to put up a fight. So because I refuse to bet against Lamar Jackson, I would also be eyeing the over in this game as well. So okay. I like the Ravens to cover, but I do also like the over here. I think that we'll see, the Bucs try to, beat the Ravens through the passing game. The run defense for Baltimore is fantastic, but I mean, the Bucs don't really run the ball that much. And that's where they will find their most success is through the passing game. And Baker, another quarterback that has really looked good this season, that's taken that, next step after coming off a really good year. And that's going to be the key to victory. So maybe you look at the passing yards for Baker. I'm taking the Ravens to cover, and I also like the over in this one, though.
I think it does set up well for a chaotic game in that way because both these teams are good against the run. What that does, it encourages teams to throw the football more, and throws, incompletions, stop the clock, or it's a big play. That's kind of the two outcomes of throwing the football. And both these teams are good against the run, but both passing offense can be very efficient. The Bucs, the numbers behind them this year are insane. And you mentioned Zach Orr. He's definitely improving, getting that secondary to gel, but it's still a work in progress, which it's understandable because they had a lot of turnover there, and Kyle Hamilton can't play all 5 spots simultaneously. So there have been some rough spots, and to be expected, but that does set up pretty well for a shootout. Frankly, I selfishly hope for that because I want to watch that on Monday night. But I think that it does set up well for a back and forth game where you see a lot of play volume here, just because, like you said, both these teams can encourage their opponents to throw the football instead of running it.
And maybe it's pass attempts as well. There's a couple different ways to play this because, you bring up a good point. When you're throwing the ball that often, either, you're going to see a shootout, which is what we hope for, or it's going to be just chaotic turnovers, incompletions, wild, sloppy football. Yeah. But that is going to be the key for both of these teams is how effectively can they throw the ball. But no, Jim, I refuse. It's one of if there was a betting black book for me, it would be we're done betting Jags, and also we're not betting against Lamar Jackson when he faces the NFC teams.
Well, the Jags thing kind of takes care of itself this week because they are somehow 5.5-point favorites against any functional NFL team. So that took care of itself. Didn't have to worry about that to begin with, but not betting against Lamar as well. Laying the 3.5 of the Ravens -115 and liking the over 49.5 at -110. Okay, Meghan, any other games catching your attention as we get set for week number 7?
So with all of the high-powered offenses in this week, I'm going to the team I just said I will not be betting on, and it's the Jags. I'm not betting on the Jags. I'm betting on a Patriots upset. This game is in London, so the Jags stayed there. This is their second week playing in London. They lost last week to the Bears. It was embarrassing. If you didn't watch it, don't go see the highlights. You don't want to watch. But the Patriots got blown out as well last week. However, it was Drake May's first start. And I don't know, there's something about betting on a rookie quarterback in a second start that intrigues me. There was a lot, at least on paper, to like about Drake May. I mean, he did turn the ball over a lot, but you felt like this offense had just a little bit more firepower, put up 21 points last week, which was the most that they'd done through 6 weeks of football. It's not a lot, but it feels like it's that new, mentality, gives you a little bit extra hype, motivation. And this Jags defense hasn't been good in the slightest. It feels like it is a mess in Jacksonville. So in London for this game, I'm going to take the Patriots straight up on the money line, kind of feed off that momentum to win.
That money line for the Patriots right now is currently sitting at plus 190. And like from a numbers perspective, I understand why the Jags are favored by 5.5, but like kind of looks like the Jags quit last week. Like the Andre Sisco, their safety, said so. Like if the players are saying they quit, Doug Peterson seems demoralized. Like why are they so heavy? Like, again, I get it from a numbers perspective, but like from I'm pretty sure this team quit perspective, I don't quite understand why the market is where it's at.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you factor in like locker room issues. It feels like like the Jags are kind of giving up. Like, and trust me, I was big on Jacksonville in the offseason, and but then you got to know when to not double down. And for the Patriots, it feels like they have a little, it's kind of when you take away the numbers, which obviously we don't just take away the numbers, but you look at two different locker rooms that are kind of coming into this week with two different mentalities. The Jags deflated, bad loss to the Bears. The Patriots, yes, bad loss, but a little bit of momentum with a new quarterback that, can potentially give a little Shazam, a little, extra juice. And I think that they might, and Gerard Mayo kind of talked about that. There's that young coach. He's adjusting as well. I like the Patriots here.
You said the word there, juice. Drake May has juice. They did not have that before. It was fun to watch. It wasn't always good. It wasn't always efficient, but it was fun. And like that can energize a lot of teams. So Meghan is on the Patriots money line plus 190 over in London on Sunday morning. That is all that we have here for today on Covering the Spread. I want to give a big thank you once again to Meghan Payton for joining us, breaking down her thoughts on week 7. Meghan, I appreciate the time. Enjoy week number 7. Good luck to you. We'll talk to you again very soon.
Thank you, Jim. Happy week 7. We got some great games. Enjoy it.
Should be a lot of fun. Find Meghan on X at Meghan Payton 7 and check her out on FanDuel TV from noon to 2 Eastern every weekday. I am on X at JimSannes. You can find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work on the video side of things. Thank you, Justin. Thank you to all of you for tuning in. Good luck to you with your Thursday Night Football bets. And we'll talk to you once again tomorrow to break down some NFL player props with Aiden Cotter. This has been Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast.